Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics. Go on, Sam. Chug, 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 chug.
You're making me choke. I was just
not choke, chug.
No, mate. It's warm in the studio. I just needed something cold. That's
really, yeah.
Anyway, lovely to see you, sir. How are you? And what have you been up to?
I'm very well, thank you, Sam. I'm just going to put mine over here. It's not warm in here, but I need no excuse. I've had a lovely week. Lovely week, thank you. I went to see a lovely play in the midweek to Chelmsford to see The Miracle Worker with some friends in. So that was absolutely wonderful, beautiful, beautiful production. I've had an audition.
Very nice.
So that went very well. So I'm still sort of waiting to hear about that. And I've had self-tape to do and been preparing for with Verona for our Halloween pumpkin carving event at the end of the month. So yeah, good, nice array of bits and bobs. About yourself? What have you been up to?
I had a fantastic photo shoot on Tuesday. That was really good. Working with a friend of mine, Emma, and we were modelling jewellery for a up and coming jewellery brand and some sort of stock images for their website. So that was great fun. I mean, you won't see a lot of me. It's mainly from sort of my chin down and my chest up because it's necklaces or just like my wrist and my hand. But it was quite a fun experience nonetheless.
That's nice.
Lovely company to work for, and it's nice to be back in a studio modelling. And speaking of, you never guessed, Drew, I've just spotted a segue. Here it comes.
Segue, mate.
Speaking of modelling and studios, our guest today is a bit of an expert. He's been in the game for quite some time, and he knows his way around a photography studio or two. And I have to say, he is one of the busiest and most he's always doing something, and his schedule, I don't know how he manages it, but because of that, I know he hasn't got a great deal of time. He's managed to slot us in. And I think so we should probably jump in and say hello. So
let's do it.
Here we go. Here is today's special guest. He's coming in now. And there he is, Mr. Joel Hicks. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, mate. Long time no see. Good, brilliant to have a chance to catch up, and thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen at home, please meet Mr. Joel Hicks, the most versatile man ever invented. I think is probably the way to describe. Primarily, I would say primarily a model, but with so many strings to your bow, then that I can't even possibly know where to start to introduce. So why don't you do the honours, mate, and give all our lovely listeners and viewers a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, and where you've come from to get to that point.
Okay, probably best starting from where I've come from, really, and take you through the journey. I left school, went off to uni, as like most people do. Did a degree in biochemistry at Bristol University. That's going back over 20 years now, so quite some time. Left university like most people with a degree and not really having much of a clue about what I was supposed to do next. Kind of go through the conveyor belt and go through school and everything else, and decided that while I was going to work things out, I'd take a job at a primary school, working as a teaching assistant, because it was better than working in a warehouse. And the primary school that I was working at, they offered me an on-the-job degree again. So I did a teaching degree and became a teacher, teaching primary. Never really sort of had any inclination to teach. And so I thought, I'll join the Royal Marines. So I got a commission in the Marines, went in there for a bit, got thrown out after about 4 months for being colourblind. Which is a bit of a blow. Came out and didn't again really know what I was going to do. So decided at the time it was the Iraq War, and had to do a lot of sort of learning and stuff about what was going on out in the Middle East at the time. So as it was, I decided to go out to the Middle East myself and have a look at what was going on. So traveled through Europe, out to the Middle East, went all the way around Syria and Lebanon and Beirut, ended up in Cairo studying Arabic. Came back, then started to teach A-level and GCSE just to bide me over for a bit. Left that job, got a job at a construction company, working the accounts. Somebody at the construction company heard me arguing with a quantity surveyor and said, you ought to be a lawyer. So I went back to uni, invented a degree in law, and then did my barrister qualifications the year after that. And at around that time, I basically, I set up a charity foundation called Always with a Smile. And it's happened quite by accident. Just went out with a couple of mates to Wales to take part in the bog snorkeling competition. And did that. And it kind of got me thinking, well, you know what, maybe I can do 3 or 4 events a year and raise a bit of money and have a bit of a laugh and not take myself too seriously. And so set up this foundation and started to go to these crazy, wacky events and doing all that kind of stuff. And the foundation grew and grew and grew and got more and more popular. And I went to Wales to take part in the Naked 5K. And a local photographer saw some censored pictures of me doing the naked run and approached me to do some modeling. And I was like, no, I'm not that kind of guy. No. And she was like, oh, no, I really want to take some pictures of a guy and we could do a charity calendar. And some people that followed the foundation were like, oh, yeah, I'd buy that. And so basically I got roped into doing this photo shoot to make this charity calendar. And then another friend of mine sent off my images to an agency without me knowing. And the agency got in contact and said, can we meet you? And that's how I got into modeling, really. Just as a time as I was being called to the bar. And I just kind of fell into it, really, from there. And then the modeling I started off really sort of a mix between sort of freelance modeling and agency modeling. And then because of sort of my physical size, so I'm not huge, I'm 6'1" and about 98 kilos, but I'm sort of too big to be a mainstream model. I started to get quite a few acting jobs and acting castings. And that's kind of morphed into what I do today, which is a lot of acting work, a lot of modeling work, both freelance and agency. I ended up setting up a studio to basically to give me somewhere to shoot. And also I sort of got into photography as well. So I sort of now teach that and run various different clubs and activities with that. And I carry on running the foundation, which was really sort of my main incentive for going down into sort of the modeling and the acting route rather than staying in the law, because what I do now with my own time is my own time. If I was to do the law, you know, you're basically knee deep in the law, you live and breathe the law, and it doesn't leave a lot of time for anything else. And I have a lot of sort of passions outside of sort of general work. And so I made the decision to sort of live a life which is sort of quite bohemian and off the wall, and no 2 days are the same, but it's working out okay and sort of getting there slowly and surely. So yeah.
I mean, there's so many things in what you just said there, Joel, that just flip that people's preconceptions. Like, okay, so he's a model, you know, people go, oh yeah, model just sits in front of the camera and smiles all day long and looks buff and gorgeous. You know, also he's just juggling 3 degrees, a studio and a choice of so many careers. I mean, I'm very glad you've done what you're doing because you're amazing at what you do. So it's great. But I also think the teaching profession have probably lost a brilliant teacher. The law's lost a wonderful barrister, but that's all our gain, you know. It's,
I mean, I still keep my hand in with various things. I still go into universities and do a bit of lecturing and go into schools and do bits and bobs. And so I'm quite fortunate in that, I've managed to sort of, in everything that I've ever done, I've managed to sort of keep some grasp or some roots within that profession, which is quite nice. But it all, as I say, I think a lot of us go through like a period of not crisis, but we have doubts in our sort of mid-20s, early 30s about the careers that we're in. And I think we're so work-centric and job-focused. People often define themselves by their work.
Yeah.
And, they look at their friends and their peers, and everyone seems to be doing their thing and they're getting on with their life. And you can very quickly feel like you're being left behind, and, you're missing out on life because, everyone paints the picture that they really love their job. And the reality is mostly somewhat different. Most people find themselves getting in a job that they don't really know what they're doing. Then they start earning money and they're in a job which they can't quit because they're earning so much money and they're used to a lifestyle. And I sort of made a decision pretty much in my mid-20s that I wasn't going to define myself by my work, that I was sort of going to define myself by my life. And, my dad passed away a couple of months ago, and he was an electrician. And he was, one of the most intelligent men I ever knew. Could make anything, build anything, built the house we live in, and just so creative with his hands. If I bought a cupboard from IKEA, I'd be rocking in the corner in 6 hours crying my eyes out because I wouldn't have a clue what to do. But if you give me a book on further mathematics or organic chemistry or quantum physics or the law or biochemistry, that kind of thing comes quite easy to me. And so I kind of realized early on that I was quite fortunate in that I could sort of chop and change careers relatively easy because, rightly or wrongly, my brain is valued in society as opposed to someone's sort of physical hands. And I thought, well, why not just try as much as I can? And if I find a job and I want to stay and do it for the next 40 years, well, great. And if I don't, why not keep chopping and changing and just keep doing as much as I can and experience different things and just like get a full flavor of life? And that's the way that I've kind of lived. And
I think there has been I think you're right, John. There's been a real sea change in the way people live their lives now, because we are able to. I mean, not only is it the people refer to it as the gig economy, people jump from short to, but also people I think it's not frowned upon now to go, okay, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, and a lot of people in the profession as well in our industry, they go, oh, if I don't make it, I can't leave. And I think, people don't, I've got to stick at it. I can't ever leave. I can't ever change. And I think you can. And I mean, you're proof. Well, all three of us are proof of that, of coming at things from different angles, doing different things. And I think that's the joy of what we do. But also it's a gift as well, because you say you are able to lecture, you are able to go into places and be be an example of, you don't have to stick to this, you don't have to define yourself, and you don't have to, if you're not the best barrister in the world, you're not the best mechanic, you're not the best plumber, whatever, hairdresser, that doesn't mean you failed. There is actually an opportunity to go and try something else.
I think a lot of people, they look at let's say, they often get apprehensive about trying something new for the fear of failure. And I always think that's the wrong way of approaching it. I always think you should always be excited about the challenge. When you don't know what you want to do, to me, that's an opportunity to go out and experience something and give something a go, rather than be daunted by the fact that you don't know what's around the corner. And I think a lot of people, I mean, the typical thing is, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? Or, have you got a plan for 5 years? And every time I've made a plan, it's all gone to cock straight away. Like, it's never so I just don't make any plans these days. Like, there's just no point, because the moment I write something down, it's over. It's like not going to happen. And I think as well, in our profession, you've got to be versatile. You've got to be diverse, because there are very few actors and models that are able to live and function on that one income. They've got to have more strings to their bow, because there's times where you can go months without a job, and you're starting to think, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And you need secondary, tertiary incomes and other interests to keep you going. Otherwise, you're going to be hard up. And a lot of the guys that I say no, that are in a similar position, they live in London. They're either working as PTs or they're doing bar work or whatever. I don't live in London. I live in the Midlands, and that's one of the reasons why I set up the studio and sort of got into photography and that side of things, because I wanted to stay within the creative world, but I wanted to do certain different things and have that kind of steady income coming in that I could rely on when the job front sort of dries up. And it does for everybody. Like it's sometimes you feel like you can land every job and it's a doddle, and then other times you think, oh my God, I've not worked for 6 months on a job, and you start to panic a little bit. And I think a lot of people as well, they don't necessarily, I try to explain to people that a job has to really sort of, an agency job in particular, has to pay a minimum of say £4,000 for me to break even on it. And they think, oh, you're getting £4,000 just for doing a couple of days work. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not. I've attended 30 castings to get that job. I've done X, Y, and Z to get there. The expenses that I've incurred getting to that position. And so you're never really making money, you're surviving. And so, you're sort of chipping away all the time, and you're hoping for the break and things like that. But you've got to be versatile. And I think our industry, you've got to have a certain character to stay within it. You've got to be able to take rejection, and you've got to be able to keep going and be very, very versatile in what you're doing. So, hopefully I've got some of those traits, and, I tick by as we go. So, yeah.
Well, you say about versatility, and I can't not mention what has got to be one of the most unique jobs. So people that are watching on YouTube as opposed to listening, you might be looking and thinking, now we recognise Joel from somewhere. And no, it's not Magic Mike, as much as he looks like he should be doing Magic Mike. But anyone that's been tuning into ITV recently might have seen you in a slightly different guise. Talk to us about this, because I mean, unique is the word for this gig. I think is probably the way to describe it.
Apocalypse Wow. Yeah. So as a part of this foundation that I run, okay, like I say, we do all of the crazy, outrageous events that go on in the UK, and people sort of say, well, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, okay, so I always, with a smile CV, reads something along the lines of this. I'm a 5-time winner of the Birdman, which is where you build a flying machine and fly off the pier.
Yeah.
I'm a former world clog cobbing champion. That's where you throw a pair of old boots over the back of your head. I hold the record for carrying the heaviest wife in wife carrying history at 22 stone. I also carry another record for carrying 2 wives at the same time. I hold the record for carrying the heaviest amount of coal at the World Coal Carrying Championships, which is 120 kilos. You do that for just under a mile. I'm the target at the World Egg Throwing Championships. I start and stop World Pillar Fight Day every year. I'm an ambassador for the Malden Mud Run, for the Liverpool Santa Dash, for all these different things. And I am also a 6-time World Gravy Wrestling Champion. And I am in the Guinness Book of World Records for that achievement. And I have done TV shows in Russia and Germany and in the UK. And so I got approached by the Apocalypse Wow producers, because I'd worked with Chris from Chris and Kem a couple of years ago doing something similar. And they approached me for this TV show, which they described as a bit like Gladiators. And I was like, okay. And they were saying, it was going to be basically to wrestle a team of celebrities. And I was like, yeah, fine, do what we need to do and everything else. And that's how it sort of came about, really. And I got... when TV shows approach me to do what we do, sometimes they don't realize the insanity of what's involved. So I always try and explain to them that things will get crazy and a bit wild, and I try to emphasize that, it's gravy wrestling is obviously not a serious sport. It's fun and it's pantomime, but that means you're playing the character, just like you see on the WWE and everything else. Yeah. And so in the actual World Gravy Wrestling Championships, I've been various different characters. I've been Stone Cold Steve Bisto, the Macho Man Randy Sausage. I've been Gandalf the Gravy. I even dressed up. I dressed up as a woman one year and entered the female competition, and then was disqualified for having a meat and two veg. Apparently, I don't know how that works in today's political climate, but whatever it is. But they invite me on the show, and then things get crazy. Brilliant. And then the celebrities kind of get a bit anxious because they actually think I'm genuinely going to try and hurt them, and it's it's all good fun, and once they get in the gravy and they realize how much fun it is, they relax and stuff. But it does get a bit wild and everything else, and it was good fun to do. Whether we get a second series or not, I'm not quite sure. I think it got quite a good review online. It got quite a lot of support. I'm not quite sure the critics were too down with it, but
you can never worry about what critics think.
You can't worry.
As you know, I do theatre reviews, and no one cares what I think about theatre.
But yeah, it was good fun, and to be fair, with the gravy wrestling, I think we've done, I don't know how many shows we've done now. We've done Britain's Got Talent. We did the Paul O'Grady show. We've done the Michael Ball show. I said we're doing all around the world with it, and it's kind of the epitome of what I do with the foundation, because basically, I've been doing the gravy wrestling since it started over a decade ago, and we started off in a supermarket car park in Wigan, just with a few shoppers walking past thinking, what on earth are they doing? Throwing in a couple of coins.
Surely in Wigan it was seen as an insult because they're passionate about their gravy. So
exactly that, Well, now we're in Lancashire in Stackstead, and we have a big pub called the Rose and Bowl, and we get over 1,000 people come and watch, and we raise about £5,000 a year for East Lancashire Hospice.
Excellent.
And it's developed into this, really nice community event, which is, sadly getting less and less. There's less and less of them around these days. But it's, it's great fun, and the TV shows have really sort of. They've sort of got a hold of these kind of eccentric British things that go on. And so generally when BBC, ITV, Sky or anybody else wants to cover something that is odd, I end up getting a phone call, because I'm kind of like the quarterback of events that goes on. If they need to know anything about it, then I tend to know, because I tend to be in it. So, this weekend I'm off to do the Battersea dog run with my dog Jessica, who's just on the bed behind me. So we're doing the mud run together, and we're going to be singing a song from The Lion King as we go round. So, it's just good fun, and that's how all my life is. It's just a bit wacky, a bit eccentric, and there's a lot of overlap, in everything that I do, from work to play. So I often describe my life as something that is, I don't have a job. I live a life, and I get paid for some things and I don't for others, and that's really how it is. So, and that suits me at the moment. So yeah, all good.
I love that. That is such a lovely philosophy. But I never thought I'd hear the phrase, once they get in the gravy, they enjoy themselves. That's just what. I think you may well have spiked my interest. I'm not a gravy man, but after this, just picturing yourself, Joel, and certain celebrities wrestling in it, mate, I'm going to chuck it over my roast potatoes next time. It's brilliant.
Exactly that. I have to say, brilliant. I do have a certain following, both men and women. I don't know what it is about two men wrestling in gravy that tends to excite people, but there is certainly an underground movement there. So.
On those certain websites, yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Put your credit card details in. I'm sure you'll find something. So,
we're crossing a line into something different there, but I suppose to sort of to go back to, and as you say, you don't necessarily have a job. You have interests that you do. Some are paid, some are not. But to
Yeah.
push it back perhaps to the more commercial side or monetary side of the industry, being so incredibly busy, how do you manage to schedule things? Because as you say, you run your own studio, which I mean, people need to check the most incredible space with a lake, and the backdrop is just phenomenal. And how do you manage to keep everything running together?
Well, I mean, I do work a lot. I mean, I tend to work sort of 60, 70-hour weeks. But as I say, because it's not a job, it's a life, it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm doing that, if that makes sense. The way that I try and do it is, you know, I might wake up in the morning, I might do a little bit of admin for modeling work, I might do a bit of foundation work, and then I might go and do some PTing, and then I'm constantly able to sort of assemble my time in the right way. The studio I've set up in a way to allow it to run itself, in effect. You know, the model for the studio is that basically once a photographer comes or a model comes, they are able to take care of the place themselves. And, you know, so I might have a photographer that will ring me up and say, Joel, is the studio free from 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock today? Yeah, no problem. He'll turn up at 2, he'll do his shoot, he'll leave the money on the side, and I'll never see him. And that's took quite a bit of time to sort of foster that kind of relationship, because, you know, I want people that come to my studio to feel that it's almost their studio, you know, because that way they respect the place more, they look after it, they have an interest in it. And there is, I mean, freelance modeling is a totally different entity to commercial or agency modeling. And I think a lot of people don't, you know, if you say to somebody on the street, I'm a model, the first thing they'll ask you is, oh, who do you model for, or what do you do? And they're referencing agency or commercial modeling. The freelance side of it, most people on the street don't have a clue what it is. And it's, you know, it's generally, it's I would say, hobbyist photographers. So just as some people like to go out and play golf or play tennis or collect stamps, these guys or these women, they like to take pictures. And so it's a pastime for them. And they are taking photos of a mix of professional, semi-professional and hobbyist models. And so it's kind of this mishmash of people. But the industry has changed with the advent of content. And most people are aware of content, things like OnlyFans and the internet models and all this kind of thing. And so it's a very sort of unstable time within freelance, because nobody knows quite what's going to happen, because the models now can earn more money, let's say staying at home doing cam work or doing selfies, than they can by attending a studio and working with a photographer. And so on a financial basis, they have to be really interested in creating art if they want to be a model, if you see what I mean. To me, there now needs to be a distinction between what is a model and what is an online, I don't know what the word might be.
Presence, shall we say.
Adult entertainer, or whatever you want to call it, you know, because it is sexualized. The majority of it is sexualized content. And so, you know, the studio was set up, you know, originally to try and get models and photographers to come in. And, you know, I've been running in the past, I've run a lot of model days and things like that. And that's mainly because I'm a male. Now, the freelance market is dominated by female models. So I have this wonderful studio and a wonderful space here, 13 acres, as you said, the lake and everything here. But photographers won't come to photograph me because I'm a male. So you have to have females here to bring the photographers in. And then when the photographers come, they see the place and then they come back. Yeah. But if I was a female model, this place would be booked out 8 hours a day, every day of the week. So you have to sort of understand what the demographic is of the industry you're in. Now with the advent of content, it's getting harder and harder to get models that are willing to do model days and to actually model. So we're now going down a route here, which is more to do with workshops and teaching and photography clubs and putting on, let's say, extravaganzas and events that are more eye-catching. So next month I've got I'm doing a warrior workshop where I dress up in armor and various bits and bobs, and then in December I'm doing a fire workshop where I'll be doing fire breathing and fire eating and using fire swords and fire whips and basically just burning everything down to the ground, and giving photographers the opportunity to capture what is not just run-of-the-mill imagery, but just something where they look at it and go, wow, that's incredible. But so the studio effectively I've designed to try and run itself, and then everything else is a fine balance. And I think most people that work within our industry will find this, that sometimes you're fine, work is just ticking along. And then last week I had 5 different castings coming in 4 days, and you're scrambling trying to get everything done and everything last minute, and you think I can't cope with this, and then suddenly you won't get a casting for 2 weeks. And so it's very much sort of fits and starts, sprints and walks all the way through your time. And I think, as I say, the best way to the way I can describe how I've managed to sort of maintain this is I do work long hours, but I enjoy the work that I do. So when I think that's key in anybody's vocation. If you don't enjoy it, it doesn't matter how little or how much work you're doing, it drags. And
there's no point in doing it, is there? There just isn't,
I mean, I always used to say, you should think about it as a child. And if you said to a child, right, for the next 40 years, for 8 hours a day, I want you to do something that you don't enjoy, but I'm going to pay you a lot of money. A child would turn around and say, well, I'm not doing that. And yet as adults, we concede to it. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying everyone should be having a raucous laugh at work. What I'm saying is you've got to enjoy your job. You've got to have a passion for it. Otherwise, I would just hate to be in a job where I am looking and thinking, oh, is it the weekend yet? And then Monday rolls around, I'm already looking at the weekend again.
Yeah.
I very rarely know what day it is, because there's no difference between a weekend and a weekday for me. And you just have to live and get on with it and just have a passion for what you're doing.
Well, I mean,
we've said a few times on the podcast and talked about that life work balance, where we as performers are incredibly lucky that we do get up every morning and adore what we do for work. And work is a very broad term, of course, but we are lucky that we do enjoy our job. And there's no secret to it that probably the majority of the population haven't got that luxury, that they like what they do. But for a lot of them, if they're able to earn a certain amount of money that enables them to entertain themselves outside of work and do what they want in the evenings during the weekend, as long as you can find that balance where you sit in that, then that's fine. We're lucky that we get paid to mess around and do fun stuff, and some of the time, I mean, obviously there are serious jobs as well within the vocation, but a lot of the time we're paid, and there's no secret to it. The majority of what we do, in fact, nearly everything that we do, is not well paid by any stretch of the imagination. We're not the Tom Cruises and the Brad Pitts who earn millions and millions for their jobs, be it modelling, acting, whatever. We exist and we get by, but it's made up for by the fact that we love what we do. And on the flip side to that, if you don't necessarily enjoy what you do, but you're not unhappy in your job and you're earning some money that enables you to have a nice life outside of your work, then that's great as well. But it's those that are existing and fighting every day to have to get, you've just got to take stock if you're in a position to, and go, is this really what I want to be doing? I love your child analogy. I think that absolutely
yeah, it does.
I just think that so many people never take that risk, because they feel that they have commitments. I mean, when you think about the system that we go through, we go through school, as I say, like a conveyor belt system, then we go uni because that's what we're told what we've got to do, and then we're supposed to get a mortgage, and we're supposed to, we end up with this debt from uni, and we've got to go to work, and you almost can feel trapped that you've got to be doing this X, Y, and Z, and you've got to be making this progress.
Yeah.
And if you actually take stock to think about what you actually enjoy or what am I passionate about, the boat's going to pass you by. And I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Like, Simon Cowell was basically bankrupt at 40, and these it's not. We're in an age now where age doesn't really matter in many ways.
No, indeed.
I'm 43 now, and I got into modeling and acting probably late 20s, 30, something like that, and again, that was probably about the 5th career change I'd had in 10 years. And, if you're willing to take that risk, I always think, the reward is, I don't know anybody that ever changes job or takes a career change and thinks, oh, I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? It's just, you could go for it. I'd rather have tried and, not, how do you find success, but not succeeded than to have thought, I don't want to be sitting there when I'm 80 and thinking, damn it, I wish I'd have tried.
I wish that. There's nothing worse than regret, is there? And I mean, I was sitting here today just getting huge enthusiasm and energy and that it's been very uplifting to chat with you today, Joel. No, it really has. It's great. There's a big, but we do have to unfortunately wind ourselves up a little. But before you go, from all those wonderful experiences and this great richness of life, we always ask our guests to finish with an anecdote or something. You've given us amazing wisdom, but is there something that sticks in the memory? Just something ridiculous out of all the moments of gravy and everything else you've done. Is there something that you go, that was just daft?
It's hard to narrow it down, actually. There's been several. When I think about my acting career, I think about the scenes of intimacy I've done. I've done more scenes of intimacy with men than I have with women, which is always copping off with David Walliams or all these other people, or I talked about the fire breathing earlier on. Last week, fire breathing. You can see I've got a bit of a beard. This is trimmed down, and I did some fire breathing and set my moustache on fire. And one of the photographers managed to capture a picture, and I've got a fireball about 8 foot above my head, and I've got a yellow line going around here, and it burnt the end of my nose off, which has always been fun. There's been so many moments of sort of surreal nature, like all the way through what I've done. Just before the first lockdown, I was out in Ireland filming what's called The Northman, which will be coming out early next year. It's a film by Robert Eggers. It's a Viking saga starring Alex Skarsgård. And we got to the last day of filming, and in this particular scene, we've been raping and pillaging and everything like that. I play a berserker in it, like a Viking warrior. And we had to do a scene where we're enjoying the fruits of our spoils, in effect. And if you imagine a long sort of Viking room, and we're all sitting there drinking, and the camera comes through the fire, and we're all gathered around. And Robert said to me, he says, okay, he was giving people different sort of jobs to do. And one guy had to eat an onion. So he's there and he's got an apple and an onion skin wrapped around it so it looks like he's eating it. He says, oh, Joel, you can have the eggs. Okay. And he says, yeah, so what you're going to do is you're going to crack an egg and then eat the raw egg. I was like, okay, fine. We did 13 takes of this. It was like Cool Hand Luke, except with raw egg. And they were all just absolutely wetting themselves. I had like yolk all down the beard, bits of shell. Mate. God. I can't wait to see if they cut it out, I will be absolutely gutted from the film. Because I'm sitting there every time I'm just like, here we go again. Oh,
madness! Absolute mad. I mean, yes. What a summary of what you do. You go from serious modelling, barrister work, being a teacher, being in the forces, and then you're eating raw eggs on TV.
Eating raw eggs, and there was a couple that were on the turn.
God! That is the perfect way to finish this. Like
that mate, on the
flying home the next day, and you don't even want to know what was happening there.
Right, we're getting rid of you before you say too much. That's more than enough. We don't need to know what the aftermath of but that what a summary, what a way to sort of go.
Brilliant.
We work in this incredible industry, and it can go from simplistic and very straightforward stuff to absolute madness. And again, a perfect advert of why we, and particularly you, do what you do, because that's your job, to eat eggs and wrestle in gravy and
exactly. No 2 days the same, and my bowels thank me for it.
And that's definitely a note to finish. Joel, mate, thank you so much for coming on. And
absolute pleasure, guys.
We've said it a few times with previous guests, but genuinely, we've not even touched on the surface of what you do, really. So we'll definitely try and get you back on next season, maybe, or we'll get another episode going, or something else. But there's much more to be explored in the world of Mr. Joel Hicks. So thank you again, mate.
I might have a different job when you come back. You never know. So who knows?
Oh yeah, God, who knows what you'll be doing then? But
chef,
again, mate. And, maybe not that one. Who knows? But
who knows?
Thank you again, mate. And have a great rest of your week. And we'll speak to you very soon. Cheers, mate.
Enjoy yourselves, guys. Take care.
Cheers, Joel.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, mate. Honestly, Sam, what a pleasure. I mean, I've not met Joel before. An absolute stunning guest. I mean,
he's just brilliant, isn't he?
He's just amazing guy, an absolute amazing guy. And I tell you what, he has given me. He's planned my week for me.
Oh, really?
I shall be making gravy and certainly not eating raw eggs. I can't promise you I'll wrestle in gravy, but I'm going to make some gravy and maybe an omelette.
Well, do you know what? I mean, if it comes down to it, mate, I will pay so that I don't have to watch you wrestle in gravy. And I think, but no, just a superb guest, such an amazing guy with such an incredible story to go through all those different vocations and stuff, and to end up where he is and be so incredibly successful, but such a down to earth and lovely chap as well.
Really interesting.
Very lucky to have him on, and yeah. So thanks to Joel, amazing. But and I guess that's kind of it, mate. I don't know how you follow that. We should probably just call it quits for now and come back when we've got some better ideas next week. Anyway, I wish you a fantastic week, mate. It's
and you, mate.
Up and
great stuff.
I'm nearly empty. Look, there we go.
You're nearly empty.
Yeah.
I poured another one.
Cheeky. See you soon, mate. Take it easy.
See you soon, matey.
Thanks again for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then please consider subscribing to our channel and you'll get notified every time a new video is released. Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app.
Please support us on other social media too. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends, and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.